Hey, g'day, it's Saturday. How we going, everyone?
G'day, it's almost Saturday.
It's a crazy Saturday. G'day, everyone. How are you? Hope you had a really good week. Welcome back. We got Jules, we got Malia. We may have Nana Girl later. We'll see. I think she's still at work. Anyway, good to see you all again. I hope you like that bit of music.
Likewise.
Yeah, did you like that music? I did.
And I'm on the road, so I'm from the truck right now.
Lee's on the road, and me and Jules are at home. And here in Oz, it's a beautiful, beautiful sunny day, and I'm stuck inside melting. I'm really soaking my sun up while it's there. So having a good time. And g'day, Donnie. G'day, Joe. How you going?
Hey, Donnie. Hey, Joe.
So I hope everyone out there had a good week. We got a couple of interesting things for you today. We've got the Kolbrin Bible and brehon law, which is Irish law. We're going to take a look at that. And I don't know nothing about either of them. That's why I'm presenting them, because I found them interesting. Turns out Jules knows more than I do, and probably Malia. But we're gonna get into that. But we'll just chill out a bit first before I dive head on into it.
Cool.
So yeah, and we'll start off, when we do start getting into it, with brehon law. Do you want to start with brehon or kolbrin?
I know a little bit about the kolbrin.
Okay, we'll start with kolbrin, then do brehon.
Okay.
Save that for last. Yeah, the Irish law, we'll save that for last, the item.
So for the Kolbrin Bible, from what I remember, it's one of those things. I can find it in print, but there's no tablets or nothing was ever left behind for evidence of the Kolbrin Bible. But it contains 11 books. The first 6 books were said to have been scribed by Egyptian writers shortly after the Exodus, and are collectively known as the Bronze Book. And the last 5 books were collectively called the Kolbrook or Kaledi, and were said to have been written by Celtic priests around the time that the New Testament was being created. I mean, that in itself was of interest to me, and it's on my list of books to buy or download. And there's free PDFs of the Kolbrin Bible out there, but it's like almost 700 pages. So even printing that it's a task, and I can only look at a computer screen for so long. So it's one of those things that it's definitely on my radar. I just haven't gotten really deep into it. But I couldn't find anything on it on that trusted Wikipedia page. And I did not know that there was such place as the Rational Wiki, where there's a lot of information about the Kolbrin. It's kind of, I mean, can I share my screen with you, Luna?
Yeah, you sure can. Yeah.
Yeah, let me share my screen. I'll just like.
Hang on, what have I got going on here? Yeah, share your screen. What have I got sharing? Hang on. I've got something going in the background. Just hang on a second. Yeah. There we go. Okay, go for it, Jules.
Yeah, so, I mean, this, again, I mean, the way I do things, there ain't nothing new under the sun with this. The information's already out there. I have know, like, I know as much as the next armchair, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, the kolbrin is a collection of texts that were of ancient manuscript UFO and the planet Nibiru and the 2012 apocalypse. I mean, and do you guys remember? It was within the past year or so of Captain. Him and Jimmy did a show on the tribe. On Jimmy came and brought some information about the kolbrin, and there's a lot of information in this.
You know what? I think I remember that show. I think I remember it. It was a little out there. It was on the radio. It was on the radio through Discord.
I mean,
Right?
there is a claimed history of the kolbrin. I mean, they were kept in Glastonbury. So it's interesting. It's one of those
That
things
is interesting. Yeah.
it's like so far fetched, hard to believe, but it's here. There's all kinds of information. And did you kind of have any information about the kolbrin?
Not me on. Oh, I thought you were asking me, Jules. But I'll just jump in and butt in here and say, not me. I didn't do any research this time on this one. So I get to take your seat on the last one and absorb what you guys have.
Yeah, I mean, and
Bring it all in.
the kolbrin was on my radar of things to eventually look at. And sorry, I didn't realize I didn't have my camera on. Yeah, well, kolbrin was on my list of things to look at. I just haven't had time to sit down and look at it because it's
Right.
it's 11 chapters. I mean, you have two different perspectives of it.
That's not too bad.
I had a strange week, but I actually took time to sit down and read a little bit of the Kolbrin Bible. And I pulled out some things that I found interesting that I'll share with you. But just before the show, me and Jules I was going through the stuff that I had for the show, and I accidentally found a whole book on the brehon law, and I was kicking myself because I thought when I sat down to do some studying, I could have read some of that book too, but I didn't even know I had it. It was like it just appeared on my computer. But we're going to show you that anyway. We can go through it together.
Yeah, I mean, I confess that I drove and rode the struggle bus a lot this week. It seems.
Oh my gosh!
I didn't get much looking into any research or anything done.
I find funny. The last two shows I've done are about books, right? Anyone that knows me, I don't actually read books. I'm not a book reader. I'm not that kind of person, right? I'll read a recipe book too, right? I'll read the instructions and stuff like that, but I don't actually read books. So when I first found the other book, I'm finding this interesting for myself because I am actually looking at these books, but I'm just pulling out the things that make me go bing. And I haven't read the whole thing. I don't think I have.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, knowing that I don't know much about the brehon laws, and the little bit that I did look into. It is, I get a sense that there is some of St. Patrick's Day where that lore comes from. St. Patrick himself, the spirituality that the Celts had, and their connection with the land and their tribe.
Yeah, I didn't know about that part. I was only looking through a particular lens because it was an evidential lens. I was looking for evidence. That's how I was looking. So I do want to read a part out of the Kolbrin Bible to you. It's like the introduction part. I found it intriguing because it starts off for use in the future, and I might not read books, but I do write. And when I write, I love writing things for those in tomorrow, to find tomorrow. So, and just the way they word it, I'm going to read a bit of that out. It's quite lengthy and I don't want to bore anyone. What else did I find? Before I read all that out, I found these are the things that I found evidences I was looking for. So one, the flood. And if anyone's been ever watching any of the shows that me and Brother Donny, when Brother Donny comes on and that, we always tell everyone when the floods happened in Europe, we didn't flood down here. We had stories of rain and stuff, but it didn't actually flood. And I found in the Kolbrin Bible, it talks about one of the incursions, which was a flood, and it says it didn't go down to the south. So I found that really exciting, and because it confirms its evidence, more another piece of evidence of what we're saying. What else I found? Oh, that's right. It had the story of, the story of Noah that most of us know. He built the ark. No one would help him. It was just him, his wife, and his family, and everyone else. Well, it's got the story of Noah in there, but it's not Noah. I think it's a guy named Hatu or something. It's from obviously from another place, so it's got different names in it. Anyway, this guy that was like Noah, he was a king. He got told by Creator to build a big ship, because if you read it, it explains a lot of other stuff like any good book does. So anyway, he started building the ship, but he took families on the ship as well. It wasn't just his family, it was other families, because the list he had of the people on there were things like, what have I put down? Bread makers, carpenters, cloth weavers, stonemasons, all different people like that with different skills. And there were 3 holy people also on the boat within the ship. So there were a lot of people. Like, he took, like, when I read it, it sounded like an entire town with him and the animals and everything to go with it. So I found that really interesting to hear a different story, and that was more realistic, kind of. And anyway, make up your own mind. Go and read the book. What else did I find really interesting? Oh yes, the most exciting thing I found was it talked about the first incursion, where Creator cleared the face of the earth, and Creator sent an energy to the earth that was hot, and it turned everything to stone. And when I heard that, I got really, 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 really excited, because I get into this stuff, and everyone talks about, is it real, is it not real? These stone animals and giants. Yes, I've always said yes, they are real, obviously. And here's the evidence to show the first incursion was an energy that turned everything into stone. So I made a couple of slides up just to show you. That's a bird, obviously. That's an elephant. It's 2 snakes, a lion, and some people. And Donnie, I'm glad you're here, because the one in the top of the left-hand corner looks like a black fella. Then we've got a beautiful lady with eyelashes. It's like you can still see her eyelashes. Then there's the 2 at the bottom. They were turned to stone. Then we got a hand.
That looks like a claw on something.
Yeah, that was a good one, eh? I like that one. And what else do I find? Oh, there's some more people. Actually, there's a foot there, look, at the top. And obviously they're different. Back then there were people and different people, as you can see. And they all turned to stone. So that's what I found in the Kolbrin Bible. I found that really exciting, because I actually love looking at all these things, because we have them here in Australia, in the bush. So yeah, that was really deadly, man. I like that. So that was my bit. Stuff I found. Just fix this up. What else I found? Other than that, it was a bit of reading, and I'll just bore you for a minute, and I'll read the first bit that I found interesting. The message to the people in the future. I just got to figure Fiddle around with a bit of technology. Oh, I don't want to lose it. I only got half a page. Hang on. Oh, I had technology problems from the beginning of this show, everybody. Just to let you know. And it's still happening. All right, there we go. And I'll just find it. The beginning of the book talks all about it. Okay, here we are. The salutations or prologue to the bronze book. Because there's, like Jules was saying, there's all these different books put in one.
Yeah, so that would be the ones written by the Egyptians.
Right. Okay, it's not too long. So, okay. So here it goes. Greetings, unborn ones, now asleep in the dark womb of the future. Greetings from we who were once as you and now, and I like whom you will one day be. We too hoped and feared, doubted and believed. Were you choosing a gift from the past to the future? What would it be? The golden treasures hoarded by kings? The brilliant jewels beloved by queens? Is worldly wealth still so important to you? If that would be your choice above all else, we are disappointed, for our labours have been in vain. Would you prefer the secret of life, of eternal youth? Have you altered so little from those who live and laugh today with no thought turned towards the future? This thing which seems so desirable, were it yours, would you value it? Would it never pale? Would you still be grateful for it after 1,000 years have passed? The answer would be yes. Is this life where all, the beginning and end, complete in itself? But might not this life be no more than a prelude, an introduction to something infinitely greater? Is the riddle still unsolved, the secret of the ages, still kept known only by a few? Even when these words are read, how many generations have passed without progress? Does mankind still live passive like driftwood upon the sea of spiritual apathy, driven back and forth by changeable winds and conflicting currents, making no headway? Could we leave you the knowledge enabling you to live a life without toil, surrounded by every luxury, pleasure and magic stone, grantings every desire, in all healing potion, the ability to fly or know all things on the earth? Would any of these satisfy the desire of your heart and fulfill your dreams? We who lie so far back along the road trust you have progressed beyond such petty aspirations. It is beyond our power to give such gifts, and were they ours to bestow, we would withhold them, for unless a gift confers a benefit, it were better not given. With the wisdom of your generation, tell us which of these things mentioned would really benefit you, or even prove less bad than good. Or do you still remain unaware of your true nature and needs? I'll just read a bit more. Who you are, how you speak and dress, are you even like us in form? We cannot know or imagine. This alone we know as truth. You are brother beings of ours and travel the road we once trod. We share one destiny and have the same true goal, though perhaps no more known is your day what these are than do in our days. It's a bit funny to say. Like to us, life comes to you unbidden. It is fraught with problems and difficulties. It alternates between light and shade. And like us, you wonder what awaits at the end. You too are victim of Earth's delusions. You too find truth and perfection beyond your grasp, and you too aspire to beauty and goodness. These things we know about you. These things must be, or you would not exist. Okay, I just don't want to bore you, but I find that really cool.
No, it totally was. I mean, listening to that, I get a sense that whatever happened prior to those Egyptians, they kind of went through something similar that we did. And in the end, it was the spirituality, it was the nature, it was being connected to each other that they valued more than the material goods.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Actually, didn't read all of that before, so that was the first time for me too. There's a bit more there, but like I said, I don't want to bore you. And then it goes off after that, the Book of Creation, the birth of man. I think there's one more thing which I'll find why these fellows are talking that I found interesting. What do you think of that, Malia?
Definitely, really very interesting. I like how the preface of the story is set. How it's like we're, you know, even in today's world, is that not what most people search after to obtain in their lifetime?
Yep.
You know, it's like we're born into this mindset of obtain the jewels like the queens, or obtain these golds and these riches, but is that really what the fulfillment of this life is about? Is the question hanging in that book. I really like that from the beginning. It makes me curious what's on the inside more.
Yeah, I liked it too. And that's why I found it funny that I was actually reading something, but I found delight in it. So, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
And like I said, I could read on, but I don't want to bore you unless someone else wants to read it on the screen. But that's what books are. They're kind of private books, because you sit there reading it, just you, and it's not like a conversation where next to you can hear.
I mean, where does I'm hearing that, and I'm listening to you, and I'm hearing all of that, and I'm trying to figure out, where does Nibiru and UFO come with this?
I don't know. I listened to what you said before, and what I read, and I haven't read the whole book, so I can't tell you, Jules.
So, I mean, and we do have a mutual friend, and I shared this with you, that prior to, was asking if we were going on, and I was like, yeah, and I told him we were talking about, and he's read the kolbrin, and the way, and I don't want to quote verbatim, but there is some misdirection in it, in his opinion, but wants to be the core of the one world religion. And I was kind of trying to wrap my head around that. And then it's like, one world religion with UFOs tying into that's the UFO agenda. And if
that's interesting. That's interesting, Jules.
I mean, if there's the push for Nibiru and UFOs, and if New World Order, new religion, the one world religion. Sorry, I think I said some trigger words, Luna. I'm sorry. The one world religion would pertain to our space brothers. And
well, let's use some definition here, because
look at the stance the Pope has taken on UFO.
Yeah. From the beginning, we can trace some Catholicism, UFO stuff. Like, I think Captain was touching into some of that when he was bringing forth, well, what the heck is in the nativity scene a spaceman doing? In the nativity scene, Catholic Church in Rome. That's a serious good question. What is a spaceman doing right there? Right? I mean, it was clearly a spaceman in that photograph that he brought us.
Yeah.
So, and it traces all the way back. This image of this man in a bubble that they put people down in the ocean with to begin with, and how they conquered space was by putting this man in a bubble suit. So it just make a lot of it is I agree. I want to agree with it's Tommy, right? Can I say that, or did I slip?
No, I mean,
No, somebody else.
might have the
Okay,
information, but this came from a different source.
from a different source. Okay, good. Just wanted to clarify that because, yeah, it's important to know, right? Where it's coming from a little bit, but it makes me wonder because some of the language did put me, I mean, it's curious, like I said to begin with, but some of it I wonder, like, well, what's the agenda? What is this big secret they're going to reveal? Because it kind of reminds me of a billboard I saw today, which was said the name of the city and the greatest, best kept secret. And I thought, well, that's not a very good best kept secret. You're putting it on the billboard. You know, simple minded a little bit, but we got to keep things simple. So, what is the agenda of the book? That's what makes me look in deeper. I want to go in with an open mind, but at the same time, everything that I read, I have to wonder, where does the translation come from? Who's translating it? And where is its origins? What is the belief that it has authenticity is what I'm trying to say,
Well,
you know.
there is the Kolbrin Bible. There is a PDF, a free ebook out there of it.
Yeah, I got that too. But that's, hang on, where's that? I had that, one moment. Like I said, I jumped online this morning. As I was preparing stuff for talking to Jules, I realised I had extra stuff on there that I didn't know I had. And yeah, it surprised me, so I just went with it. Hang on. Where are we? It was in. Just let me find this for a second. Ding.
All right, so here's something I just pulled up. Many will argue that the Kolbrin Bible is an elaborate fake. The Kolbrin was originally just called the Kolbrin, and American publishers decided to add the Bible. However, one might call it's a magnificent book with an ancient heritage and is nothing short of a miracle that most of it survived, at least from the 10th century.
That's interesting.
Okay, so here's the one you're referring to. I had a quick look at this. All right, it's huge. This
Oh wow, that's a lot of text.
It is. And
it's really heavy text too.
Yeah, as a person that doesn't really read
Sorry.
books. Yeah,
it's reported to be a 3,600-year-old.
Wow, Luna. Whoa.
And this is going just a little bit for the front. I didn't look at the rest of it there. It's huge.
Oh my goodness. It is. It's massive tome. It's a lot. Wow. There's a lot in there.
And what I read out was just at the beginning. That's what jumped out.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm curious, what's its original language then? What's the original language it was written in?
Information. I can't access the bottom of your computer. Please.
Yeah.
All right, so I found something.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, the Kolbrin is purported to be a 3,600-year-old book in the form of a scroll that was housed in the Library of Alexandria, Egypt, with 700,000 other scrolls which contain the history and knowledge of the ancient world. When Julius Caesar invaded Egypt at the time of Cleopatra, the library was burned. Sorry, half my page is cut off because I have to monitor. However, a few scrolls were saved by people who removed them from the library before it was totally consumed in fire. One such book was the Kolbrin. It has said that it was saved by Joseph of Arimathea, the uncle of Jesus,
Of Jesus, right?
to Judea. In order to preserve these books, they were later taken to the followers of Jesus to Britain, where they were stored in Glastonbury Abbey in Somerset County for hundreds of years. In 1184 AD, the Christian community there learned of the text and intentionally set a fire intended to burn the heretical books housed in the abbey.
I'm trying to.
So what group of people considered it heretical?
Fortunately, the kolbrin was written on thin bronze sheets and placed in clay containers, then stored in a safe place in the abbey's library. Though damaged, it survived. These plates were known as the Bronze Book of Britain. The designation was carried forward when written out in book stitch from the 17th century. Yeah,
that's my favorite century.
This doesn't really say, which leads me to think it could be a biased article.
Yeah, so I did have a look around, like I said, and it said it's different things put together, like the other normal Bible. That's different books put together, and it's talked about. I'm trying to find it. The Sons of Fire, I think it said. Oh, wrong.
Ooh, that would be direct link to the Orlinda.
Yeah, here.
The Daughters of Freya. Yeah.
Oh damn!
Is there an echo on my side? Or is it just me?
Testing.
It's just me.
So here it says, I'm gonna make it bigger.
No copies of these scrolls are available for inspection today, although there are unsubstantiated reports that a copy exists in the Vatican vaults and a copy in India. Given the history of the the unavailability for inspection today could be deemed understandable.
So here it says the Book of Creation extracted from the great book of the Sons of Fire. The Book of Gleanings, being writings from various old Chaldee books, which were partially destroyed in ancient times. The Book of Scrolls, formerly called the Book of Books or the Lesser Book of the Sons of Fire, this being the third book of the Bronze Book. And you can see in the rest of it, it says there what it's compiled of and where they come from. I just see it as old knowledge, like, just old knowledge kept from different places. Because you got to remember, back then, when I read the story about the deluge, I've been saying we never had the flood, and it's writing about it. So to me, it's just a paper on a history that I can match up with our oral history. That's how I'm looking at it. I don't know why it's called a Bible, because it speaks about Creator, then everything should be a Bible, and we should be speaking about Creator every day, like, you know what I mean? So I'm not looking at it that way. I'm looking at it for the history and evidence and to confirm what our oral history says.
It's only called Bible because the Americans added it to the title. That's it. That's why.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense. So it's actually just called the kolbrin, like it's written there.
The kolbrin, and then Americans put Bible on it.
Lucky they put a B and not a D, because then it'd say the cauldron, and then we'd be going, oh, that's a bit sus.
The Cauldron Bible.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun. I wouldn't be reading it, love, don't worry.
So looking at this and reading that, I read that it was 3,600-year-old book. Well, the only thing that I can think of that has that kind of timeline is Nibiru that they talk about in the kolbrin. I'm gonna have to get cracking with this book.
Yeah, because I'm just reading here the Book of Lucius, written from the Book of Pamatris of unknown origin. I thought, oh, that'd be interesting to see what this thing is of unknown origin. Perhaps what you're saying, Jules, is in these other places, because I only read the Book of Creation.
Because I mean, tying back with your deluge, I mean, there was the story of Astrahasis, who was the Noah, could have been Noah, and that was coming from the tablet of Astrahasis that's dealing with Sumerian origins with the Anunnaki.
Interesting.
And then if our friend is on the money, and potentially this being the one world religion, they want us to believe in Space Brothers.
What have we been saying about them fellas too? Anyway, I'll look for that proof. In the beginning, I kind of only, there's that much here. When I started reading, I'm kind of reading what's on screen now. I've read a bit of all that. I think I jumped a bit. I read one of these about people, because I was really only interested in what Creator did. But the stories about some of the people will probably have more information on what we're talking about. The Deluge, there it is, chapter 4. That's worth a read. And I'm probably, the avid book readers out there, you're probably cringing in your seat. I'm butchering the book because I don't read it from front to back or anything like that. I just
our reading style is more like pick your own reading adventure, where you read, finish, and you can go here, here, or here. You can have your own adventure every time.
So, like the Spirit of God and the Song of the Soul, like that was, and the Voice of God. That was something that I'll probably have a look into in the future. I'll read them bits; they interest me. But I really, and if me, a non-book reader, can get good stuff out of this for whatever reason, like, you should do it too. Just have a look at it. I'm not saying read the whole thing, just have a look at it. You never know. Because there's good books and bad. I think that's why I never really read, because there's a lot of bad books out there, right? And I went, like, I saw that and it made something sparked inside. And I went, well, that's a good book. And I read.
I'm one of those readers that I can read and I don't see a story in my head, so I kind of piece it together, and then I've pieced it together, and then after I'm done with the book, I don't remember reading anything of it. And I forget, and over time I forget the bits and pieces that I put together in my mind. But when I hear things, I'm more inclined to retain the information. It's just everybody has our own way that they commit things, and I can read it somewhere, but it's not until I hear it spoken that it's like, yes, that light goes on.
Funny, Dina, that reminds me of Jules. I was at the community centre this week, and one of the aunties come out and said, come look at the garden. And I'm like, yeah, because I haven't been there for a while. So we went for a walk around the garden, and she's saying, we had weaving and that going on. She goes, I don't weave, I don't paint, I just yarn. And I'm like, and she didn't feel important. And I'm like, what? I went, our people being an oral language, yarning is like the number one thing. So she was so important to us. That's how important it is. That's why, because if it's said, it'll go in and it'll find a place and stay. Yeah, that's why probably the reason I don't read books too, because you've got to actually look at it. Like you said, George, you've got to put a picture on it, put it in there. It should just be a picture. I did read about the creation of man, a little bit of that.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, from what I gathered, to cut a long story short, the mother made our body, which we know because we're right. She presented our body to Creator, and said, I made this, and Creator breathed in the spark of light that we have and brought us to life. So we kind of know that, but when I read their creation story, it was very beautiful. It was more like our Dreamtime stories, the way they talked about the mother and how she created things and that. And just having the mother in there, I found that's why I liked it. So that would read the creation of man. That's a good part. And I've marked here chapter 5, chapter 3, chapter 3 was blood.
The Kolbrin is a book that keeps on giving. I'm sitting here and I keep like doing a little dive deeper, dive deeper, dive deeper.
It is.
There are prophecies in the Kolbrin. Prophecy of the Kolbrin, the authors of the Kolbrin Bible predict an end to life as we know it by a celestial event. It will be the return of a massive space object in a long elliptical orbit around our sun, known to the Egyptians and Hebrews as a destroyer, and the Celts later called it the Frightener. That is where they're talking. That's where Nibiru comes into play in the Kolbrin Bible.
Right. Well, like I said, it'd be in here somewhere among these bits.
And then, you know, me and my nerdiness, I'm sitting here and these little questions that pop up and I'm just clicking it. And somebody, how many, well, this doesn't say Kolbrin, but somebody asked how many Bible prophecies came true. And let's see, I'm using Bing, and Bing is there are literally thousands of prophecies in the Bible, none of which have failed.
Well, like I said, I'm not really a book reader.
That's a roundabout way to say that.
Yeah.
Right? So basically thousands, but without saying thousands.
I'm not very versed with the Bible, with all the Bible stories and everything, but they're going on, and this is a test if Bing is telling the truth or not. Because and we have seen some fulfilled in our lifetime. For example, Daniel chapter 4 prophesies the exact year, the beginning of World War I. I slept through history in school. I admit it.
Huh. I didn't actually do.
Well, this is fascinating. It's got some backup in Hebraic and Egyptology literature, which is fascinating.
There's even one I just had to click called Prophecies from the Kolbrin Bible about the future of mankind.
Okay, do you want to put it up on screen? Because I'm just flicking through this, what people say.
Yeah, I'll throw it up.
All right, hang on, I'll just get this off.
Yeah, I'll throw it up and I'll do some reading. And
I'm still learning how to put the little addresses at the bottom of the page so you can actually access this for yourself. So please be patient, but it's easy to find. You just put in the Kolbrin Bible PDF, it'll come up. I found it without even knowing it, so there you go.
All right, so I got it all pulled up, so I'm gonna do a little reading.
Okay.
And this is brand new to me, so I have no idea how this is going to go. All people know about the numerous predictions made by such great prophets as Venga, Nostradamus, Messing, but a few people know about the Kolbrin Bible. These scriptures, which were created as far back as 1,500 years before our era, tell about things that have happened and are happening to the present. Many people consider these scriptures to be kind of a warning for all mankind. And when you were reading earlier, Luna, I was feeling like this is something that we've gone through before. And I don't know why. It was just something that I kind of felt. And it's difficult to say who the author was of this amazing book. Most are inclined to believe that the texts were written by the astrologers of Egypt who had secret knowledge about what it makes humanity as a whole. And those Egyptians with secret knowledge were likely, in my opinion, the Atlantean survivors. Unfortunately, time has not been kind to the scriptures. Only a small part of manuscripts have survived to our time. 6 of them were created in ancient Egypt, while others were written by an unknown Celtic priest. The book says that there was a flood on the earth, At the same time, such details and small details are given that are not even mentioned in the Bible. In addition, the Kolbrin Bible speaks as a flood of a natural disaster that arose due to a planetary catastrophe. The classical Bible, as everyone knows, speaks of God's punishment for sins. Later, when the treasures of the pharaohs were plundered, the ancient manuscripts came to the Celtic monks. Somehow they were able to decipher the texts and keep the records as the greatest value. When Christianity became the main religion, the English clergy burned the abbey where manuscripts hostile to their religion were kept. Thus, most of the texts of the Egyptian records were lost, along with many other ancient texts. Perhaps these texts are not authentic, but were specifically created in order to lure money out of the townsfolk and collectors of antiques. But how things really are is not known for certain until now. That's it. Where's the prophecy? I want to know about the future of mankind. We were duped, Luna.
It's clickbait.
And I fell for it.
I
It was
such a big
you
week.
know, totally
I've always
clickbait.
kind of wondered about the whole flood and Nibiru. If it is every 3,600 years, I mean, it would make sense that would create a deluge.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. When I sat
There's
down,
a reason people kept time. Yeah.
when I
Go
sat
ahead.
down,
Sorry,
and
Lauren.
I had it all figured out. This was at the beginning of the week, and I had a weird, crazy week. And I left myself notes. And obviously, bear with me here. Obviously, when I read those bits in the Bible, because a few parts blew my head and mind away, kinda. I've written my notes, and it says plagiarism there. So I've read something in the Kolbrin Bible about what you were just saying, right? About it comes round everything. Because I'm trying to think. Before things happened, like the incursions of the earth, I think they were talking about seeing things in the sky. And I said to my hubby, because people have been seeing the same things in the sky in the now, and they saw spirals and that, and they were talking about things in the sky. So I marked it, and I've put here plasma reset, and there's a little video that goes with it, but I can't remember why I put it there. So I'm sitting and now I've read something in there that's made me look at this little video. So while you're yarning, I might just go back and refresh my memory.
Cool.
Yeah, that's interesting calling it plasma reset.
Yeah, I mean, and the 3,600, that not only is the ellipse of Nibiru, should it exist or not exist, but that 3,600, that's also the great Kali Yuga, the master reset every 3,600 years, the cycle within a cycle, and that's the big cycle.
So, like I said, you can see I actually put work into this show, but because it was
if it's the Maya calendar.
All right, where are we? I've got to have something.
Oh, it was the same kind of week for me. It's like I'm really surprised we're on Friday already because it seems like Monday just started. Where did the rest of the week go?
I drove the struggle bus this week. It was just exhausting. It was
okay.
Short staffed at work and yada yada yada, and then wake up and do it again.
Well, I drove across the Continental Divide this week, so that was interesting. And it's all foggy up there. Huh? What?
Wow.
I said you have accomplished much.
Oh my gosh, it was a crazy week. And it's been fun.
And I don't want to take us on a on a political salty rant, so we'll just leave it at that. But things are definitely changing here. The energy's just been stirred.
Oh,
That stagnant
good.
I was feeling for
That's
so
a good
long.
thing.
It's stirring.
okay.
Good.
I know the note I left myself. It's a 5-minute video. You know how I said the first incursion. What was it? Creator refaced the earth by hardening it, and it turned to stone. There's a little 5-minute video on this guy walking around showing you things in nature that evidence of that event. That's what the 5-minute thing was. I'll show it to you. So I'll show it to you because I've got to quickly go to Jilua.
Yeah, so I'm still digging for kolbrin stuff, and I'm coming with all.
Thank you.
With all more modern Bible stuff.
Here we go.
It's a paradigm-shattering revelation, and everything that we know about geology and the layers of strata and the timeline of when things happened, all of that has to be revisited and revamped because it's based on erroneous thinking.
This is an open source investigation. You need people to participate by comparing more results and conclusions, because it's always good to question what you've been told, especially now. Thanks to all the people sharing on the internet and social media, we can see far too many correlations to just keep dismissing them as coincidences.
My theory is that when you find iron ore, and especially when it's attached to limestone, that what we're looking at is the red blood that which contains iron, as opposed to the venous blood, which is the purple blood, which doesn't have the same quantity of iron in it. So you can see, the underside of that. This has a very fleshy look to it.
Wow. Take a look at this trabecular bone and compare that to this. This is rock that's found on the top of the mountain.
This is a real good example of the Swiss cheese trabecular bone. It's in multiple channels, and here there's both iron ore and the reddish earth that's coming out. Now, some people might think that the earth has been packed in there because of flooding, but I've shown in other videos that there are larger rocks, which we'll look at one in a moment, that chunks of the rocks have broken off, exposing channels inside the rock with the reddish earth oozing out of the channel.
Yeah.
So that kind of debunks that. But this has been fractured or broken, and so has this. But on the other side, you see these micro blood vessels. So as the tissue has been broken, then the iron ore accumulates. If you look down here, you can see all of these smooth curved passages and there's channels, and those channels become smaller channels. You can see the remains of the reddish earth. It's all the way up here. The iron ore is caked throughout the channels. Okay, but if we look over here, we've got a block that's about 3 foot, and then you have this massive hole here filled with, guess what, reddish earth, right?
Isn't that strange? And you'd expect that red earth would be at the bottom. If it was from, rainfall, then it would go to the lowest point. But the point that it's packed up to the top suggests that it was in there before weathering.
And again, here you see these little lines that are like micro blood vessels, which you would find in the bone. In cortical bone, you're going to have a thick, compact bone with occasional channels going through it, and that's what you're seeing. And then here, if you look down, you can see there's a big channel here. And then the thing about blood vessels is they're fractal in nature, like trees, right? You have a trunk, and then you have a smaller branch, and a smaller branch, and a smaller branch. So that's what you're seeing, is this opens up, and then it goes into smaller and smaller ones. So explain that to me through erosion.
And how come these ones are going down and this one's going horizontal? You'd expect them to follow a bit more of a suit, a bit more of a pattern.
You'll find stones that are kind of a combination of the two. I call them transition stones. So you've got the trabecular bone that's becoming cortical bone.
Yep.
That in between. So you'll find one side has thick, non-vascular stone, and then the other side has the Swiss cheese.
Here we can see the blood flowing through bones in all directions, thoroughly down the center, and blatantly much less in the dense outer layer.
These stones, I believe, are all chunks of titans. And if you get up on them and you look down, you see that there's loads of different kinds of histology, tissues. And you can see some that have the iron ore that's caked onto the side with little openings like that one over there.
So what is it you just noticed?
I noticed that this rock looks like a lot,
Yeah,
like the structure out over lung. You see
spongy.
here, that's like the blood vessels that go into the lung.
Oh my goodness. I guess it's just another coincidence, no? Who knows? There's mountains of evidence to support alternative theories that conflict with many of the explanations that we believe to be true, which causes us to ignore, suppress, and sometimes even censor the new information, instead of just verifying it by applying the scientific method.
Primary tool of a forensic scientist is the microscope, and when you're dealing with something the size of a mountain, you are the microscope.
We're saving the biggest and best evidence for last, but hopefully we've already convinced you to go and take another look at your landscape. In the next episode, we will share our external and internal observations of the Montgo Mountain in Javier, Spain.
There you go.
Cool.
Wow.
So that was what I
Wow.
found.
That was a little mind blowing. That was
Well,
mind
yeah,
blowing,
so when
kind of.
thanks. When I read the Kolbrin Bible, because I've been researching all this stuff for a long time. That's why I'll give you what I think is interesting. And when I saw the Kolbrin Bible mention the first incursion upon the earth, I went straight to that and went, I've got to show you, because I found something to back it up. Like all up until now, I've just absorbed all this information, ticking it off in myself. But to present it to you, I want to give you something a bit extra. So I found it in the Kolbrin Bible. And if you go and read it yourself, it actually says something like that. Creator reinforced the earth by hardening it and it turned to stone. It actually says that in there. So yeah.
I found some rejected scriptures from the Kolbrin Bible.
Oh,
Mm.
okay.
I mean, it's
Why would they call it that?
let me pick one. I mean, and it does kind of, from what I'm gathering, these little sections that are popping up underneath it. There is Book of Maccabees.
Mm.
Although those books that
Really?
me and Luna keep, we need to talk about these banned books from the Bible, because
We
they
need
have
to talk about the book
and
of Maccabees.
the book of Enoch is banned. I mean, that, in my opinion, that's
Enoch is really interesting.
my best one. The ones that makes me get into that history and stuff. But there's, I mean, it's like super long, and I would like bore you, but there's just a little. When there were shipborne, wanderers given them land from the Isle of Departure, saying that they could live there where no one else could because of the spirits. Then their holiness would be established before all the people. The strangers were sorely tired by the Druids, but the spirits troubled them not, nor did the sickness of the place come upon them, and the people wondered. They were troubled because where the strangers were, and they were stirred up by the Drunith, but the shield of Argus protected them. I would have to like sit down with a cup of coffee and come read this, because if I just keep reading this, I'm not only boring you, and I don't even know what I'm talking about.
I'll fall asleep on stream. It's fine. It's fine. No, I'm teasing.
All right, we'll move on now. We come up to the hour. Oh, and we'll move on to this is what I found that I didn't know had. Brehon laws, Irish laws. I got another little video that'll tell you about the law for kings. And that was really interesting. That's what led me to this. So, and I didn't know that I actually did this. I don't know where it was. Maybe I clicked on it and didn't read it. So it goes through Brehon law, ancient law, which is, I haven't read this. I only found this morning. Okay, existing remains of Irish law. Some things I can't pronounce. Centrist more. Yeah, and then it goes into it. So this is probably a good book. Oh, here we are, the Druids, the Bards, the Brehons, because I know about the Druids and the Bards, and the Brehons, I didn't know they existed, the Algons and the Druids. Okay, and then clan systems, devolution of properties, or these are more like what we know today. They're not so much spiritual stuff. There is a bit in there though.
And before we dive into this, I got one thing to tie in, because we were talking about kind of prophets, and I was closing windows and I came across this article that I just could not help myself from clicking.
Yep.
It may be clickbaity, it may not be, but the article is called "Salvation from Coronavirus Will Come from Russia." And the famous Bulgarian fortune teller, and this is, they're talking about Venga. Venga's new the article is called "Venga's New Predictions Announce Salvation Will Come from Coronavirus Will Come from Russia." The famous Bulgarian fortune teller has long been dead, but her prophecies still excite the imagination of millions of people. Several of them were voiced in the program actually on Channel 1. The grandson of Venga's personal biographer said that there is a book of her prophecies, among which those that are related to 2020. The soothsayer assured that the virus that had engulfed humanity would be defeated. The medicine would be created from the cones of the Siberian cedar. The new drug will boost human immunity and make the body more resistant to viruses. She also assured that the epidemic would unite humanity. The borders between the rich and poor would disappear. The borders of the states would be erased. Everyone will be equal before the terrible threat of infection. However, after the victory is over the virus, according to Venga, a terrible famine will begin. I can't be sure what kind of hunger, food, culture, or financial, admitted Vladislav Savin, the cousin of the soothsayer, personal biographer, but we will unite this hunger if we share with each other. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I had to read that.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of agenda and propaganda in that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I heard that you said the tree. And
I warned you, it was probably clickbaity.
Yeah, you said the tree and the pine cone. Well, I thought, being pine needle tea. Before we go any further, I'd like to...
I wondered about that too, yeah.
Nano girl, how you going?
Nano girl.
Hi, everybody. How are you? Good to see everybody's warm, wonderful face. Sis. Faces.
Yay. So glad you could make it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught anything of the show, but we just were talking about the Kolbrin Bible and things from that, and we're kind of moving on to brehon law now. And I did send you the Kolbrin Bible, and I don't know if you had the time during the week to even look at it, and if you didn't, that's okay, because we all had one of those weeks. But if you did, and you want to, yeah.
I didn't have time, but I figured I'd show up for the conversation anyway. This has been a very interesting week, so I'm just glad to be here and kind of smooth out the edges and be with lovely, calm, spiritual people.
That was the consensus this week.
It's
Yep.
yeah.
All right.
So it sounded like you were talking, the thing that you just talked about, Jules, sounds just like the thing we just went through and are going through for 2023.
Yep. Well, we were talking about the Kolbrin Bible, and it's also could be found as the Kolbrin. Americans are the ones who put Bible on the end of it. But the first it's 11 chapters. The first 6 chapters were said to be written by the time of Exodus, written by Egyptians, and the last 5 chapters were written by the Celts, and it was created around the time around the time the Bible was being created.
You know, that picture almost looks like the Caduceus, right? With the snakes and the medical.
Yeah, it looks like the infinity symbol as well.
Yes. Interesting. We always end up going back to 8, or the similar symbols. Very interesting.
Yeah, I was just actually playing around with the symbol just then. It triggered something. It's like, oh, I remember that. All right, so we're looking at brehon law. For a little introduction.
Before you go, do you see it is a snake? Those are snakes.
They are.
Whoa! And the caduceus.
Yeah, the snakes, the way the snakes are woven in Celtic lore.
Yeah,
that's symbolic of wisdom.
Oh, okay.
The snakes were wisdom meant, and that's where I admit that going over the brehon laws, I didn't look into it heavily. I skimmed the surface, and from what I took away from what I uncovered is different than what Luna's uncovered. So it'll be a good mix. I mean, I mostly have questions because I'm not entirely sure what I read that I skimmed is actual out there, like just misinformation. So I'm really keen on hearing what Luna's got to say about this.
Right.
I haven't looked at this. Remember, I got up this morning and forgot that off. So what do we got? Brehon law. Oh, that's what I was going to do. I'll just play you the short little thing here. Oh, how do I do this? And it'll warm us up for the book. Wait one moment.
So, but basically, if anybody in chat's curious, I have a little bit of brehon stuff pulled up in front of me. Brehon law is the body of ancient native Irish law, which was generally operational in Gaelic areas until the completion of the English conquest of Ireland in the early 17th century. They were first set down on parchment in the 7th century and were named after wanderings lawyers, the brehons.
Okay, so we'll just...
Kings and queens had to submit to the laws exactly the same as the common subjects. And if a king was wronged, he had to appeal to the law like other people.
The ancient Irish had a system of laws which grew up gradually among them from time immemorial. And there were lawyers who made law the business of their lives and lived by it. When a lawyer was very distinguished and became noted for his knowledge, skill, and justice, he was recognized as competent to act as a brehon or judge. A brehon was also a magistrate by virtue of his position. From this word brehon, the old Irish law is now commonly called the Brehon law. We have seen that every king kept in his household distinguished men of all the learned professions and paid them well. Among these, the brehon always held a high place, so that a large number of brehons found employment in this way. But many were unattached and lived by deciding cases brought before them, for which they held courts and were paid fees by the litigants in each case. On these fees they lived, for they had no regular salaries, and there were practicing lawyers also, not holding the position of brehon, who made a living by their profession like lawyers of our day. To become a lawyer, a person had to go through a regular course of study and training. The subjects were laid down with great exactness from year to year of the course, and the time was much longer than that required by a young man nowadays to become a barrister. Until the student had put in the full time and mastered the whole course, he was not permitted to practice as a lawyer of any kind, pleader, law agent, professor of law, law advisor, or brehon. Law was perhaps the most difficult of all the professions to study, for there were many strange terms hard to understand, all of which had to be learned, many puzzling forms to be gone through, many circumstances to be taken into account in all transactions where law was brought in, or where trials took place in a brehon's court. And if there was the least flaw or omission, if the smallest error was committed, either by the client or by his lawyer, it was instantly pounced upon by the opposing pleader, and the case was likely enough to go against them. As soon as the Irish had learned the art of writing, they began to write down their laws in books. There is the best reason to believe that before the time of St. Patrick, the pagan Bretons had law books, but they were full of paganism, pagan gods, pagan customs, and pagan expressions everywhere through them, and they would not answer for a Christian people. So about 6 years after St. Patrick's arrival, when Christianity had been pretty widely spread through Ireland, he saw that it was necessary to have a new code, suitable for the new and pure faith, and he advised Leary, the Ard Rí, to take steps to have the law revised and rewritten. The king, seeing this could not be avoided, appointed 9 learned and eminent persons, of whom he himself and St. Patrick were 2, to carry out this important work. At the end of 3 years, these 9 produced a new code quite free from any taint of paganism, and this book got the name of Seanchas Mór, meaning Great Old Law Book. The very book left by St. Patrick and the others has been long lost, but successive copies were made from time to time, of which some are still preserved. We also have manuscript copies of several other old Irish law books, most of which, as well as the Seanchas Mór, have been lately translated and printed. As the language of those old books is very obscure and difficult, it was a hard task to translate them. But this was successfully done by 2 great Irish scholars, Dr. John O'Donovan and Professor Eugene O'Curry. These translations of the Seanchas Mór and the other old law books, with the Irish text and with notes, explanations, and indexes, form 6 large printed volumes, which may now be seen in every important library. The Brehons held courts at regular intervals where cases were tried. If a man was wronged by another, he summoned him to one of these courts, and there were lawyers to plead for both sides, and witnesses were examined, much in the same way as we see in our present law courts. And after the Brehon had carefully listened to all, he gave his decision. This decision was given by the Brehon alone. There were no juries such as we have now. All parties, high and low, submitted to the Brehon laws and abided by the judge's decisions, unless the party who lost the suit thought the decision was wrong, which indeed happened, but seldom, in which case he appealed to the court of a higher Brehon. Then, If it was found that the first had given an unjust decision, he had to return the fee and pay damages, besides more or less losing character and lessening his chances of further employment. So the Brehons had to be very careful in trying cases and giving their decisions. The highest people in the land, even kings and queens, had to submit to the laws exactly the same as the common subjects. And if a king was wronged, he had to appeal to the law like other people. A couple of 100 years ago, when the king of France were, to all intents and purposes, despotic and could act much as they pleased towards their subjects, a learned French writer on law, during a visit to England, happened to pass near the grounds of one of the palaces where he observed a notice on the fence of a field belonging to the king. Trespassers will be prosecuted according to law. Now this gave him great pleasure, as it showed how the king had to call in the aid of the law to redress a wrong, like any of his subjects. And it gave him occasion to contrast the condition of England with that of France, where the king or queen would have made short work of a trespasser without any notice or law at all. But if the same Frenchman had been in Ireland 1500 years ago, he might have witnessed what would give him still greater pleasure. Not a mere notice, but an actual case of trespass on a queen's ground, tried in open court before his eyes. In those days there reigned at Tara a king named Mac Con, whose queen had a plot of land not far from the palace, planted with glasheen, that is the woad plant for dyeing blue. In the neighbourhood there lived a female brewy or keeper of a hostel for travellers, who had flocks and herds like all other breweries. One night a flock of sheep belonging to her broke into the queen's grounds and ate up or destroyed the whole crop of glasheen, whereupon the queen summoned her for damages. In due course the case came before the king, for the queen would not appear before an ordinary brehon. And on hearing the evidence he decided that the sheep should be forfeit to the queen to pay for the crop. Now, although the glasheen was an expensive and valuable crop, the sheep were worth a great deal more, and the people were enraged at this unjust sentence. But they dared not speak out, for Macon was a usurper and a tyrant. Among the people who dwelt in Tara at this time was a boy, a handsome, noble-looking young fellow, whom the people all knew by the name of Cormac. But no one in the least suspected that he was in reality a prince, the son of the last monarch, Art the Solitary, who had been slain in battle by the usurper Mac Con. He was wise and silent, and carefully concealed from all who he was, for he well knew that if he was discovered, the king would be sure to kill him. While the trial was going on, he stood behind the crowd, listening quietly, and being by nature noble and just-minded, even from his youth up, he could not contain himself when he heard the king's unfair and oppressive sentence, and he cried out amid the dead silence, "This is an unjust judgment. Let the fleeces be given up for the glasheen, the sheep crop for the land crop, for both will grow again." The king was astonished and enraged, and became still more so when the people exclaimed with one voice, "That is a true judgment, and he who has pronounced it is surely the son of a king." In this manner the people, to their great joy, discovered who Cormac was. How he managed to escape the vengeance of the king we are not told, but escape he did, and after a time the usurper was expelled from Tara, and Cormac was put in his place. To this day, Cormac MacArt is celebrated in Irish records as a skillful lawyer and writer on law, and as the wisest and most illustrious of all the ancient Irish kings.
Well, there you go. I just thought I'd use that as a warm up.
It was good. I liked it.
Yeah, that was good. So this was like 5th century, right? I was kind of looking up a couple of things while I was playing. Because my grandmother, my mother's mother, comes from Ireland, right off the boat. Like she was, and my grandfather. So my mother, on my mother's side, right off the boat, and lived in New York. So I kind of feel like half of me has a lot of this Irish stuff already, like the fun part of me. Serious part is the English part, and God knows what else, the Heinz 57, whatever else is there. But I always feel like there's something very magical about Irish and Ireland and the things that went on there.
Yeah,
it's interesting that this was so long ago, and like when we did the show, was it a couple of weeks ago, right, where we talked about the other set of laws, and they were so enlightened, and it seems like we've gone backwards.
Well, I was listening and watching and trying to pay attention, but I kept getting distracted by thoughts. My lineage is mostly Scottish, but I'm pretty sure there's some Irish in there. But around that time, the ancient Celts, the Druids, they were the ones who were spiritual.
Yeah.
They were likely the descendants of the Atlanteans, the Egyptians. They were spiritual. They had all this knowledge. And when St. Patrick came in and cleaned out the snakes, he wasn't getting rid of snakes. He was getting rid of Druids, because the snakes were the ones, the symbology of wisdom and enlightenment. So that's what is meant by St. Patrick getting rid of the snakes. And then I kept listening, and it's like, okay, these laws and everything, if St. Patrick cleared out these snakes and these laws, are they set for everybody? Or I just had thoughts that went through. So, and then it's interesting because when the information was pulled up in the book, and those images of the snakes intertwine in the Celtic knot, that's the Druids, the Druids and the snakes and the serpent worship and everything. It's not that they worshiped them, but because they had all of this spiritual wisdom, those are the ones that, as history came and kept going, those are the ones that were persecuted and called witches.
Yeah. So then that means that St. Patrick didn't necessarily do everybody a favor, right? If he got rid of
he got rid of our ancients.
And the fact that he's a saint, which connects to the Pope and the Catholic Church, and they made him a saint, because when to become a saint, you have to have all these miracles attached to who you are. There's a bunch of criteria.
Mm-hmm. And St. Patrick getting rid of the snakes, and then the papacy and Rome and everything. Well, how do you convert most people? You get rid of them. You get rid of those kind of people who have that spiritual knowledge and wisdom. We can't have that. No. That's control.
Correct. And then you make them a saint.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting, in America, when you celebrate St. Patrick's Day, you're getting drunk.
Here too. In Australia, they all go, the pubs are
the green beer, and you get drunk. Really, pretty much that is the day.
Yeah, and I pulled up a couple of articles when I was looking, because again, with the brehon, I didn't really know a lot about it. And when I first skimmed, that's the impression that what I took away from it is that these all laws, and they are beneficial, and they're very good laws to have. It kind of keeps everybody on even level, but then there's always that, okay, I mean, I can see with this where there was a historic shift in the timeline where assertion was put down, control is made, even if it was just a trickle of a start.
Okay. I found in the Brehon book, which I'll put back up, a little section, the Druids. I'll just sort of skim through it. I'll read it out for you. I'll get back up, hang on, and read it out at the same time. It'll be a nice thing to do. Hang on. Oh, here we go. I'm getting good at this technology. All right. So, Druids. Next claim consideration. One modern writer tells us that the Druids were magicians and nothing more. Magicians, yes, and nothing more must be rejected. The popular view of what... Oh, we just lost Malia. The popular view of what they were is more nearly accurate than this. The Druids were much more. They were above all... Technical problems.
Yes, major technical problems. Sorry.
So, you're right. The popular view of what they were is more nearly accurate than this. The Druids were much more. They were above all things the priests of such religions as existed, and in that character were quite as highly venerated and as influential in Ireland as Caesar found them in Gaul. Their religion, if their many strange and conflicting views and practices may be considered as one system and called a religion, was to our minds degraded and degrading, and their ceremonies may appear to us silly or worse. We may think crotch very unworthy of worship. I have a hard time saying it. Anyway. But what does all this matter if that religion was dear to the people as the essence of a spiritual life and the prime requisite is that right, for attending?
I can't see it. I would totally jump in for you, but I can't see it.
I'm trying to make it. I'll make it bigger. I'll try and make it bigger. Sorry. Oh, hang on. There, is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Requisite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, prime requisite.
For attaining eternal.
There we go.
And if it yield to its adherents any of the consolations which religion affords and for which the human heart yearns, it cannot be doubted that in Ireland, as in Gaul, the most learned, the most sage, the most virtuous men of the nation were Druids, or priests of the religion. Their superior learning enabled them to become more than priests, magicians, if you will, but certainly philosophers, astronomers, judges, bards, literary men, musicians, physicians, seers, or diviners of future events, and many other things, and may have given them a choice. Almost a monopoly of all the offices which required learning. Their magic consisted mainly in their superior knowledge. In times of general simplicity, and I think they deserve to be called a learned priesthood. In those circumstances, most of the brehons, perhaps nearly all, were Druids, but all Druids were not brehons, for the office of brehon was but one, a choice of accessory officers, which their learning opened to the Druids. This seems to account sufficiently for the connection of the Druids with the law and the apparent opinion of the writers of old that the terms Druid and brehon might be used interchangeably. It is impossible now to determine whether at any time the office of brehon was restricted to the Druids as an exclusive legal priesthood. Probably there never was a positive restriction, but only the practical one involved in the requirement of learning which few laymen could then satisfy. But the administration of the law not being the special function of the Druids as such, but only a sort of secondary string to their bow, they may be supposed to have bestowed more attention upon what their special function was than upon law. Yeah, I was thinking that too, right? The law remained in the Berla. Oh, here we go.
And the Berlia Fini, the old classical Gaelic, in which it had been originally composed in. I hope you explode it, but can you make it bigger?
Yeah, I can try. Look at us trying to read. Old people trying to read.
I know. Like, that's why I don't want to put the camera on, because all you would see is my eye, and that was it, because I'm trying to hold it so dang close.
The law remained in the book Berlia Fini, the old classical Gaelic in which it had been originally composed and constituted a large and important part of the fidelic or higher academic course through which both druids and bards could pass, in which they could attain certain standards of proficiency before being admitted to their respective professions. All that old language gradually became antiquated. The laws became less accessible and less intelligible to others than those learned men. And yet the actual knowledge of it, which had sufficed for them, was little more than accomplishment, did not always enable them to deal with satisfactorily with the legal difficulties of everyday life. It is easy to conceive that in such circumstances, the law may sometimes have failed in its primary object of bringing justice home to the people. As evident want arose this combined effect of the negligence of those two classes of men and the growing importance of law must have made it clear that the administration of justice ought not to be secondary to anything, but deserve the special and exclusive study of a distinct profession.
Right. So there's a little bit more to this profession. Laymen applied themselves in increasing numbers as the druids withdrew, until the administration of the law had got almost wholly into non-sacred hands. Non-spiritual hands, okay. Not being occupied with religion or with any other profession, nor hampered with the trivial formations which the sacerdotal mind has always been so prone to create and magnify. Actually, I'll just stop there for a sec, because for me, that's exactly right. There's a point. You can probably see where I can read spiritual stuff really well, but when it comes to proper stuff, I get caught, because the mind's geared one way and not the other. But I think spiritual, that's a discussion we can have. I'll continue. Hang on.
See, I mean, in just this one sentence that's coming up, in Rome, the pagan priests were the earliest judges and custodians of law. I mean, that's good and evil. I mean, you had these spiritual beings who didn't hurt anybody, who lived in harmony with nature and their kin. And then these invaders come in and boom, they lay down the law.
Yeah. But I noticed too, it's LAW, not LORE, because here we have two.
Yeah, that's something that you had mentioned to us last week. Do you want to go in the difference between law and lore?
Yeah, well, this is how our people see it. LAW law is man-written law that men have wrote on a paper or declared. LORE is creator and the mother's law, natural law, that all things abide by, all nature and all beings abide by. So there's two different laws. And I noticed that what we're reading is LAW. But like I said last time, the reason I'm looking at these books is because we've come to a time in the world where in LAW law, it's not sufficient, and it's on the point of it's rotting. It's like bad food, right? So we need to get some LORE law, and we need to establish proper way of living, a proper way. And that's why I'm presenting these things, because in history there were proper ways. If we can have a look and be realistic in today's age, we can do some good things. Anyway, that's my opinion, and we'll keep reading.
I think that's how you create chaos. I think we used to have the rule of law in America. That was part of the Constitution, right? I mean, that was the foundation, and then the states had laws, right? And we had the police department, and we had all this stuff going on. Well, part of the creating the chaos is you weaponize absolutely everything, and you defund the police, and now nobody has any law. And then you also have two sets of laws, if not three: the rich people, the mega rich people, and the rest of us, which means there's no law. And when there's no law, then I think that's where the chaos starts, and that's where you can have the Civil War stuff, right? Because if everybody, what is that famous statement from Kennedy? If you make it impossible for people to protest and to get their voices heard, then that all that's left is violence, right? People break out in violence, and so I think it's good to kind of go through some of these things, because what we're seeing is over and over again, we keep doing the same thing over and over. We reinstate the laws, and then the people that want to, run the show, get rid of them, and then it's just this constant circle. We never seem to evolve out of this. You know what I mean?
I do.
So here we are again.
Yeah. And what I noticed too, the last time the book before and these two books, the law, the LAW law they do have is made sure of honesty, so there's no deception, and there's clarity. They're more tended towards an honest LAW,
right?
Whereas in LAORE law,
yeah,
the punishment for breaking them is so strict you wouldn't even think of being deceitful, right? So somewhere in between, because remember one of you said that's a strict law last time in one of the other books. That's a strict law, but I can see the necessity for it. Somewhere in between lays the necessity for strictness, but the necessity also for honest, good, because I think we need to come more from the heart spiritually, hence the old law, but practically, hence the new law, because we've got things now we never had back then. So we need to adjust a little, So I think that's why I'm actually looking at these, but I will continue because this bit isn't that long. And it is hard for spiritual people to bend over to LAW law and still retain who they are, because it's too far over, and I think that's where the corruption begins. So they tend to stay away from that kind of corruption. But we can see here how it changed. There was a mixture of spiritual people and business people, you might have say.
Well, I mean, the thing I'd throw in there is because most of us who've evolved take responsibility for our actions. We believe there's consequences, even if it's just personally, right? It's like I have a friend downtown who owns a store, and people are walking out of her store with stuff, and she said they're my age, right? They're all my age, and there's no excuse for stealing, right? I mean, she just has an antique store. People are going into her store and stealing her stuff, and it's just it's and that's the breakdown of our society.
True.
Right? And because what's happened in California, probably the rest of the states too, is you can steal up to almost $1,000 and nothing happens to you. It's okay. I don't know if you heard that, but it's true, right? So you can steal, you can walk into Walgreens or Starbucks and just pick up your coffee and help yourself and walk out. Nothing is going to happen. Well, eventually those of us who are paying $8 for coffee aren't appreciating. I mean, so there's this huge imbalance now. But when you have people who believe, hey, I can just go into this person's store, no repercussions. It's not my, money.
I don't know what to say about that. It's like, wow.
I know. I didn't know if you knew that, but I mean, but we go back to the spiritual piece of this, which is the main point, is an evolved spiritual person doesn't steal for higher reasons. It's not about the law. It's about the spiritual law, because we know that stealing hurts other people. It's very demoralizing to my friend. And, if you get your house broken into or someone destroys your car, these are personal attacks. It's demoralizing to the person that you perpetrate it on. That's all I'm getting to. It's like,
they don't think about that. They're only thinking about the physical item. They're not thinking about the person and how it will impact their life.
Right.
One thing I know, I have met thieves in the past, and I've watched their life. And when someone thieves off them, they spit the dummy. But you can't feel sorry for them, because what goes around comes around, and they live in a world where they steal, so naturally it's going to happen to them by their other thief partners. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I do believe that. I think on some level, somewhere, it comes back to you.
It does.
And you may not even recognize it as, oh, by the way, clunk on your head.
Yeah.
That was for stealing. You may not recognize that was connected.
That's right.
Unless you're aware.
Yeah. But it all starts with doing it the wrong way and hurting someone for unjust reasons.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've lost Malia. Unfortunately, she's having technical problems. She's out and about, lucky girl. I wanted to chuck that at the end of the show where she'd been, but never mind. So we'll get back to this. So gradually the spiritual fellas, the druids left the system because it's not their thing. And I don't think they wanted them there anyway, because at the beginning they said they were just magicians. So I don't think the LAW law people wanted the LOR people removed. So these men could breathe a freer air, enter more sympathetically into the views and feelings of both parties to a suit, and arrive at a decision more satisfactory to both. Then is as a rule possible to men who thought through in the world are best when they are not of it. In Rome also the pagan priests were the earliest judge of the custodials of the law. They greatly hampered its justice and its efficiently by the invention of useless technicalities.
That sounds familiar.
Until at length, in 451 BC, the Romans resolved to reduce their laws into a written and fixed form, and called upon the priests to produce the laws for that purpose. When, lo, it was found that the priests, after all, really had no substantive law to produce, because it's a different kind of law, that they had completely lost what it had. I'm having trouble talking today. Guarded nothing but their own technical inventions, many concerned with mere procedure or its prevention, and mainly detrimental to the free flow of justice. Hence the Romans, in drawing up their 12 tables, were obliged to resort to laymen of common sense and even to consult neighbouring nations as to the very rudiments of law. All right, and then the next sections are the bards, but I want to read about the druid.
Going in, I can see where this ties in with the kolbrin, because the last 5 chapters were said to be written by these people who wrote those brehon laws.
Interesting. I've seen that. All right, so then we got the bards. If you want to know more about the bards, someone else can read it out. No one's looked at this book, by the way, Sharon.
I would help you read, but I need like extra big words. My eyes are straining from that last read.
Do you want me to read this? I can read it if you want.
You can read it, okay? Because I need a cup of tea. I think to wet my whistle.
Okay, I can't work the slides, but I
know that. I'm just coming back to where the hell were we?
Okay.
All right, the Druids. That's right. We read that. It's not that long. It just is big for us older people. I don't really need glasses. I'm just tongue-tied today. I had a big week, like I said, and I can't really talk about it too much. Okay. So we'll start then. I'll just slowly slide it up for you.
Okay. All right. So can you scroll it down just a titch so I can get that first sentence? Okay. How with regard to the files or bards, they did not, like the Druids, become extinct on the extirpation of paganism, but continued to flourish and to form an important class down to modern times. They were anciently much more than present popular conception of them implies, for they were the historians, genealogists, teachers, and literary men of the nation, some of them also being Druids and some judges. But as regards the bards of Christian times, after the monks had taken learning and teaching under their special care, the present conception of the bards is fairly accurate, and therefore their connection with law is not at first sight obvious. Little or no such connection continue to exist, and the presence of the bards in battle and their thrilling. We can go to the next one.
Oh, Luna might have stepped away for coffee. Luna drinks tea.
Okay. Thrilling writings relative. They're to remind one more of the war correspondence of their own time than of lawyers. Anciently, some of them were judges in addition to being bards, as we have seen in the case of Dubtak. But these instances were few even then, and not at all sufficient to explain the intimate connection between the bards and the older law. The secret of that connection lies elsewhere. Their chief connection with law was not in the character of judges, but in their proper character of bards. In this, their true character, there was then a use for them amounting almost to necessity. Accustomed as we are to writing, printing, and other modes of preserving expressions of thought, we are liable to forget that the laws we are considering originated when those arts were unknown, when in northern climates men preserved their learning in their heads instead of on their shelves and communicated it by their tongues instead of their ink and paper. Verse always has been and still is easy committed to memory and retained there. So we've got to go to the next one. Okay, and the more harmonious it is, the more effective and reliable for this purpose. To give this quality to things of value, as law, history, and genealogy, not to speak of pure literature, to which this quality has been natural, was in such a time as important a service as a bard could render to his nation. It imprinted those things not on paper, but on brains, fixed them in heads where otherwise they would not abide, and rendered them capable of being transmitted from person to person. Next slide. From clan to clan, from generation to generation, from times far beyond the reach of history until well into historic times, this use of poetry was clearly very important, and hence the originals of almost all our very early manuscripts on law as well as on other subjects were in verse. It was the duty of the bards to reduce the laws into rhythmical form, and they retained that function in their hands for some time after the actual necessity for it had ceased to exist. Nothing but a sense of duty could induce a body of learned men to take such wonderful trouble with a subject so unattractive and unpromising. This fully accounts for the connection of the bards with our ancient law and explains the sense in which they were as its custodians. And it also accounts for the abnormal development of the bardic profession in Ireland and for extraordinary amount of archaic Gaelic literature preserved. The combined effort of meter and rhyme was to render tradition at once easy and reliable. To take the Senchus Mór, for example, though not arranged prose-like on paper, portions of the text are in regular verse, not merely in meter like blank verse, but in rhyme. The editors say that whether this is due to the fact that two of the compilers of the Senchus Mór were poets, or to the fact that the pre-existing laws of Ireland were mostly in rhyme, or partly to both these causes, it is an open question. Perhaps so. I think most students of the subject will for themselves consider the question as closed and feel quite satisfied that the ancient laws of Ireland were mostly in rhyme or in alliterative assonance, having all the properties of rhyme for art and memory from necessity before the art of writing was known, and from the unexhausted force of long established usage after that art had become known. The art of writing became known to some extent in Ireland about the first Christian century, or perhaps a little earlier. Its practice was encouraged and extended under King Cormac in the 3rd century and from his time downwards. But it was not until the introduction of Christianity in the 5th century that writing became general. During this period, at all events, the time-honored custom of making and retaining the laws in rhyme undoubtedly held its ground, so that not alone did the compilers of the Senchus Mór find the laws in rhyme, but they found the old usage still of quite sufficient force to require from themselves a semi-balance of reducing into rhyme any new laws then made or modifications of the old. Rhyme laws were still the ideal aimed at. Accordingly, there is reason to believe that the whole text of the Senchus Mór, written in the 5th century, was in rhyme, and in the introduction written at a later date, it's included Dubhek's fine poem as the most suitable introduction. This was probably the only introduction in the first instance, the work being then metrical and rhyme throughout. Wherever in the text the rhyme is now absent or broken, the reader may conclude that there was various transcribers have been carrying on the operations that I have endeavored to explain, finding it necessary to substitute new for obsolete words and to translate some passages, and no longer a practical reason for reducing these emendations into rhyme, that ceremony was admitted, and thus, while the law was simplified, the verse was spoiled. The commentaries were not composed by bards at all, and so far as they are original, they are not rhymed, but in them are frequently quoted fragments of traditional law for the purpose of driving home their conclusions, and such fragments are nearly all rhymed in meter. The ancient civilization of memory is one of the arts that have fallen into disrepute. Amen to that. It has carried in other countries as well as in Ireland to a degree of perfection how hardly credible, nor were meter and alteration as subsidiary to it, particular to Ireland or to the Irish laws. The perfection attained in these was peculiar, and the rhyme was peculiar. To the absence of this bardic perfection, the poverty of other nations and archaic literature is due. To its presence, our wealth in that respect is due. For other nations, the remote past is a blank. For us, it lives mainly through the skill of the bards. The bards were literally provided for by their contemporaries. We may enjoy their labor without having to pay for it. You know what comes to mind reading this? That I have heard that when we got the word, the written word, versus the drawings and the things that we saw in the cave and stuff, is when things got tighter. That when the flow and connection to the universe, and the planet, and all that kind of stuff started, because that was it. Its words limit the feelings and the drawings and the inspiration, and that's when civilizations start to change. That's when countries start to change, when the written word comes in versus the drawings and that, because then everyone can participate in that. And then listening to this, when you think about the fact that they shared this in a rhyme, everybody had to memorize it. Without the written word, if somebody does a rhyme for you, you can visualize it in your head and your mind and keep it fluid versus it's locked into words.
Totally.
You're on mute, Luna. If you wanted to say something.
The trick's on me. Okay, yeah. What I was going to say, because I've said before in other shows where we should actually sing when we talk, and half the talking we do these days will just be yes, gammon. Anyway, I'd like to see some of their rhymes. Like I'm imagining today, like what are some of the laws we got? We got some ridiculous ones. I don't know, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but if you take one law from today and put in a rhyme, you'll just laugh your head off and fall on the ground, you know what I mean? So I'd love to hear what their laws were in rhyme. But yes, you wouldn't forget it. And coming from an oral history people, you write about it activating the picture in your mind. And it would come with a feeling too, like it would all be synced in. As you spoke, the rhyme would come with a visual and a sensation as well, would be the shortest way to put it.
Well, what if we did a funny YouTube? Okay, hear me out here. I know this is really bad. What if we did a funny YouTube about people going into the stores and taking stuff for less than $1,000, and everybody's dancing, and then you do the high fives on the way out the door, and you're stealing the stuff and you're taking it home.
$1,000 for you, it's free. Just come into the store and steal from me.
There's no cost. There's no fee. The cops ain't going to come after me. I mean, just get on down with it, man.
I will be down for that. That reminds me of the old, like, Darby O'Gill and the Little People, the old classic Disney one, the rhyming. I mean, you had to outwit King of the Leprechauns.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And Rumpelstiltskin, or he'd take your baby.
Yeah, I see where that comes from. So, wow.
Yes.
Well, we're nearly 2 hours, and I've actually, if you want to read more, you can, but I've had enough of reading. I'd rather yarn about it a bit more. So, yeah, I think there's room for a change. Just even the rhyming. Well, imagine that instead of getting on the news or a letter saying there's a new law to be put forth, you have someone singing in the streets singing this rhyme.
Well, I'm just wondering seriously if people could hear it if it's done in a funny way. I mean, because I don't know if you heard, it was that Dave Chappelle was on Saturday Night Live, and did you hear he actually did 2 monologues, and for the people who run the show, he did one, and then he did the one live. And the one live was the one that was really risque, and he said everything he wanted to say because it's live, right? Saturday Night Live is live. Well, Dave said a whole bunch of funny things, but they were really serious things. But people could, and I mean, I looked at the amount of people that looked at the YouTube. It was in the millions. He just rocked the world. So my point is that one of the things that they've weaponized is our sense of humor.
Yep.
Making fun of stuff. And I think humans hear things better if they're said funny, because things are so serious right now. So I'm just wondering, I didn't want to bring up what Dave said, but I'm just saying the fact that he said it in a humorous way got the message across. And the fact that he double-crossed them is brilliant. I couldn't believe it. And he's a hero for doing it.
Yep.
So
Things
anyway,
definitely have our times are changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. And that's what I thought. Looking at where we come from.
And with these changing times, this is a great topic, Luna, because if we go back to these old rules where fair is fair, where things should be, it's a good way to live before the system got compromised.
Yeah, I was just thinking about our trade system, our traditional trade system. It was built on an honest heart, where if I gave you, Jules, say you wanted to give me a giant pack of coffee, and all I had to give you was this special rock, and it kind of doesn't weigh up even because your giant pack is more than the rock, depending on where it come from. But maybe that was a bad choice.
Well, but then, depends on the situation. I might be in a place where I might need that rock.
But usually what happens, if it doesn't quite match up, next time we trade, I'll remember that it didn't quite match up last time, so I'll bring something extra to make up for last time. And when we trade next time, I'll give it to you and go, here, this just makes up the difference for what we traded last time, because mine was a bit less than yours. And out of your honesty and your pure heart, people know what they do, man. They don't rip people off and not know it. They do design it in their head how they're going to rip people off first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the old way was built on a lot of honesty and trust. And I suppose if we got to bring that back first, and the good people, and then you can build better law. I don't know. I'm not the lawmaker. Creator is.
And I'm not a lore maker.
Right, but I think we need to bring back personal responsibility, right? People start to take responsibility for their actions, and to realize that I don't give a crap what everybody says out there. Your actions and your words have consequences, and you can hurt people around you. And how many of us have to just pretend like there's no laws that pertain to us? That's ridiculous. If you're a part of a community, then you owe it to the community to show up and to be a good citizen. I see that, right? I feel that way. And I also feel like personal responsibility is me taking responsibility for my growth. I don't want to go backwards. I don't, I feel like this is all part of that programming that we've been talking about, and I don't want any part of it. It's just, I'm going to continue to be the kind of person I respect what everybody does around me, So yeah, I agree. It's time.
Yeah, time for a change. Oh, how's that song? Time for a cool change. Oh, for you fellows, it is. As winter's coming. Outside's really sunny today.
Yes, time for a cool change. Yeah.
Well,
It's a little cold here today.
I know. I enjoyed presenting these things, like this book today, and the book we presented.
This is definitely interesting, and I wish that I had more time to look into it, so everything wasn't off the cuff. But Luna, thank you for presenting me with something that I will definitely look into, both the brehon law and the kolbrin, because I can see where they go hand in hand.
Yeah, I find it interesting, and yeah, like I said, I'm not much of a reader, but I did find it. I liked having a poke around in there, and there are a couple of things I saw I'd like to poke around and have a better look. But yeah, if I find any other books in the same area like that, I'll chuck them on. So who knows what I'm going to come up with next? We'll find out. Yeah, so ladies, I pity we've lost Malia through technology problems, but that's okay. I'm sure she enjoyed the show too. So yeah, if you want to round up, Sharon.
Yeah, I just thank you for presenting this. I was thinking about it the last couple of days that I think if we don't think of anything else about tonight, it's good to know that this is not the first time this has happened. We've been here many times before. And, you know, I think it's just how we all, I think the difference is the technology maybe, but then if we live through Atlantis, we've already been through this before too. So it's a part of this learning circle here right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the game is the people in control think that they're going to continue to control the entire planet. And I'm not sure anyone can control the entire planet. I mean, it's just
Annie.
insanity.
Yep.
Because it's a fluid, energetic, alive, influenced, constantly being bombarded by all of us little mini gods running around trying to learn how to manage our energy. And so that's, you know, we're all like little mini, you know, I want to say little mini atoms and atom bombs running around everything.
Yeah, you're right there. Oh, yeah.
So, you know, have at it, you know, but they are making our lives uncomfortable right now. And their whole basis for everything is fear. And our whole basis is love.
Yeah.
And these shows that we've been talking about laws, I really like the fact that it was talking about rhyme, so that it's not that you're stuck with the written word, but that you have the possibility to put it in your mind and visualize it and incorporate it in the society you live with your vision, your energy, and your love and light. So that imprints your community.
Yep.
Well said. Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. Actually, probably put a comment about Inner Earth being older. We'll do another show on Inner Earth another time because there's a lot of stuff talking about the tunnels and all that. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I suppose it's time to go now, everybody.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was.
I look forward to almost Saturday.
Almost Saturday. So we got almost Saturday and Gday Saturday. So, all right then. Well, like I said, just remember, Creator loves you. Hope you enjoyed the show. You are loved. Love to you on this day. Stay centered. Stay in the heart. Stay true to yourself. Thank you, Jules, for coming. Thank you, Sharon, for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Thank you for the invite.
And I'm just trying to go out with music, but I'm trying to figure out how to get it on there.
And thanks for everybody in the chat for showing up.
Yeah, thank you everybody for sitting through all that reading with us. I hope you found it just as interesting as we have. And we'll see you next time. Yalu.
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 See you next week.